Yeah, all set. Angel,
Hey,
you're there.
yeah.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Welcome everybody. It's Everald Reid in the studio tonight with episode 32 of the Reid Method Insider podcast. We are about to have an amazing conversation about the power of meaningful conversations, and that this conversation in this episode is as a result of a conversation I had with our special guest, a very short 12-minute conversation I had with our special guest joining us tonight live from Trinidad and Tobago. Folks, welcome Engel Jones to the show.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that tremendously.
Well, there you are. So I envy you right now because we're snowing, we got snow and it's cold and it's messy here, and you're in Trinidad and Tobago with the sunshine. Like, what the hell is up with that?
Yeah, I have the air conditioner on. I hope it isn't coming.
Oh, shut up already.
I put on the shirt because Everett is always so sharp. So I said, hey, let me put on a shirt and not just wear my V-necks, right? Because it's
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been too much if you're in a V-neck and I'm here. But anyways, well, folks, it's episode 32 of the Reid Method Insider podcast. This episode is about the power of having meaningful conversations. And Engel Jones, our special guest tonight, was born and raised in the Twin Islands of Trinidad and Tobago and loves great conversations. He's an entrepreneur, life coach, and the podcast host of the 12-Minute Convo. His passion is to help you find your own unique, real self. After having 1,001 episodes in 3 months, he uncovered yours, a tool used to reconnect you to hidden passion and purpose, which is essential to creating your brand. Engel believes and lives the principle of Zig Ziglar, where he can have everything in life you want with enough help and helping others to get what they want. Welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, thank you again.
You're pumped as I am.
I am.
So the first question I have, and folks, I was on Engel's podcast, 12-Minute Convos, a few months ago, sometime in late 2017. And I don't even know.
95.
Is that what my episode number is?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. See, I'll have to write that down, 1195. So mine is podcast number 1195. I still don't know how you found me or contacted me, but that's irrelevant now because we've done that. But I wanted to, when you were done, I wanted to invite you on my show, but you were so busy doing all these 12-minute conversations around the world with all these special, unique guests. So tell me, what possessed you to start this whole journey?
Possessed is such a strong word when you're doing what I'm doing, my friend. I'll say stirring. I was definitely stirred to do this as it began where we were creating lead magnets for our business. The podcast was one of the lead magnets that connected me to so many other products, specifically what I listened to via 2 podcasts at the time, one being very instrumental in changes in my life, which is the Dave Ramsey Show, and then the second, which was Entrepreneur on Fire, right? And one of these podcasts pointed to Zig, and Zig has this tool that teaches you how to build your business. And you build that business around sales, administration, leadership, operation, and marketing. You needed to create your funnel. And part of creating that funnel is identifying to the top there what's going to bring visitors to you. Yeah. So I was doing that for 3 brands: my brand, my wife, Amanda Jones, and my mother, Cassandra Jones. And in doing that, I attempted to do 1 podcast before this podcast, Everald. It was crazy funny when I listened back to it, right? The name of it was going to be called The Jonesy Money Show. And, I got in there, started that, then I shelved it. Then Amanda wrote her books. she simplifies health disorders and so many other things through poems, through rhymes. So I said to her, hey, you need to create this, right? You need to create this podcast. And, she did a few episodes, then she shelved it. Around that time, what I was doing is something around an online community led by Aaron Walker, where I would meet weekly, have conversations with young men in there, older men as well, that would help us go on what I'll call the right track. So there are all these people in this online community, and I'm thinking to myself, it would be cool if I could speak to each person, right? And I came up with this format, and I started there. Meanwhile, Amanda is podcasting, and then she shelved it. And then I said, it's time to do my podcast. Now, I'm very competitive, Everald, just a bit. Yeah.
I can tell.
I said
you're competing against your wife. What's going on?
I set this goal to beat Johnny Dumas episode count in 2016. And we were preparing for this conversation, my wife and I, and she expressed to me the importance of expressing when I say beat what I meant there, right? And I identified quickly in life that in order to get the skill you so desire, you need to do a lot of it. Some people say you need to do 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
So I decided that I'll go after Johnny Dumas's episode count, and I'll have 1,585 conversations in my first year of podcasting from March to December. And the story goes on.
My goodness. And as the record will show, you did 1,001. That extra one just to make sure that you didn't miss 1,000 in 2016.
Yeah, that night was crazy, my friend. We were aiming at getting over 1,000 for sure. And on that night, that particular last night, which was December 4th, 2016, things just started falling apart. We lost about 7 to 10 people that just jumped off the schedule for extremely good reasons. Like there was a death in a family, someone didn't make it home. It was really great reasons. But again, the power of a conversation. There's one woman called Wendy Williams that when I wanted to stop having these conversations, she came on and started connecting me to other people. And that was very instrumental. And on the last night, she connected me to like 5 people in 1 hour, right?
My goodness.
And in doing that, she had someone, and it took me straight to 1,001 conversations.
In 1 year. In your first year too?
Yeah, well, just to clarify, it was in 3 months. So
really?
Yeah, what happened, Everell, is from March 31st, right? I launched, and then it took me up to September, and I got to 76 episodes. And I was about to give up. And I was in Tennessee at the time at a conference held by Dan Miller. The name of the conference is Coaching with Excellence. And his daughter, Ashley, is teaching on personality types, personality assessment tools, the DISC specifically. And it's as though I was zapped by lightning. And it sounded like, hey, you said you set out to do this goal and you shouldn't give up. And at that point, I started writing in my trusty yellow pad what would be required to hit 1,585. So I had 76, and then I added 1,509, and that was the beginning of setting that goal to have those conversations.
So it all starts with a 50-cent notepad.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's amazing. Like, and if we dig deeper, as I love to do, as a child, one of my earliest childhood memories is that, like everyone will tell you, he always has a pen and paper, pencil and paper close by.
Wow.
It's intriguing to see that connect.
Well, we all know, you and I both know that people who write their goals down and are more likely to achieve them rather than just thinking about them and talking about them. But those who literally start writing down notes, making a list, prioritizing, putting timelines on things. So you had a goal, you had a number in mind, you had a timeline, you had a deadline for that matter. So naturally, you walk it backwards. It's no different than selling cars. If you want to sell 20 cars or 25 cars in a month, how many people you got to talk to, how many test drives, how many presentations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and to get a certain number of, to get the end result. And so there's so many lessons in what you've done, and which attracted me to when I saw the number. And you just mentioned so tell the audience, what number are you up to? Because I saw 1721 this morning. You telling me it's way more than that now.
Yeah. So with the podcast world, one of the things we love to do is definitely build a treasure chest of episodes. So usually we build episodes and then we release. So there's always a lag between what you hear and what has been done already. So what I did is from September 19th to December 12th, I set a goal to have 800 conversations this past year, 2017. So with those added conversations, I got to 1,987 conversations. Thus far, we've released up to 1,725 as at the time of this recording, because there's a process. We need to edit and add stuff to it, make sure things are clear. Big up to my guy, Francis Gilbasia, who edits the podcast. He's done an amazing job thus far.
And you keep that man very busy.
Yes, he does say that as well.
Yeah. Well, so was there one or two conversations that you had that stood out, or was there any that shocked you? Because after talking to 1,987 different people from different parts of the world, there must be something. Is there one or two that stood out and shocked you, and why?
Yeah, great question. So there are many conversations that have impacted my life. A disclaimer, just that there's so many, and we'll speak about this later, just in terms of the uniqueness of individuals. One of the scenarios that did occur on Thursday, 13th of October, 2016, that fascinates me to this day is episode 223, backed by 224. And what happened on that night? So one of the reasons I jumped in here to do this podcast on this level, one of the reasons is that I believe that if you did something repeatedly, consistently, you'll find yourself that answers to questions that you think are true will then become true. So I'm having these conversations. I'm tired. I'm doing like 20 a day, right? And I had a Nicholas Snap on. Now, to get Nicholas Snap, there was some challenges and we flipped spaces. I think I missed my mastermind meeting, got him on. And then I said, I had a break. So I said, okay, I'll go take a nap. It's one of my things, power naps, right? In the midst of this. So I got in bed. My wife, she power naps right through, right? So she continuously power naps, right? So she's in bed, like where she's supposed to be, and she's in bed at this time. And I go and I lie beside her, and I said, I have someone in an hour time, and I get in there and I oversleep.
Oh my goodness.
She wakes me and I get up. She says, don't you have a podcast? Fly out of there, get into the cubicle where I podcast, and I'm there, and I've missed the guy that I'm supposed to have, right? And then I have episode 224, which is Michelle. The thing that occurred that really got me spooked that night, that when Nick expressed his earliest childhood memory, he said that he was 4 years old and he remembered that his parents told him they were having a brother, or they brought home their brother, something like that, right? And then we go on and I'm like, okay, cool, all right. And then he said, you know what though? Like I live in Florida and we had a pool in the backyard. And one time I fell in there when I was 1 year old.
Wow.
I was like, wow. He said, I would think I was under there for 8 minutes.
My goodness.
My neighbor came across and performed CPR. They thought it may have brain damage, but everything was good. So I was like, all right, cool. That's amazing, right? Then, as I said, I went, I slept, overslept, missed the guy, and then had Michelle, right? Reached to the question now, what is your earliest childhood memory? And she says, when she was 4 years old, she remembers falling into a pool.
Oh my goodness.
And she was under there for like 6 or 7 minutes. And she saw the glistening water. And in her mind, she thought she could breathe, and she was breathing, but they fished her out. And she said that she remembers seeing an angel just like there. And then she goes on to express that in times of darkness, in times when it seems as though it's impossible, that you always remember you can still breathe. I'm like, now, do you know Nick Snap?
My goodness, that is too coincidental.
Yeah, it definitely speaks, my friend, to the ability to connect dots, to connect things in life. And I mean, they're in two different parts of the world. So it was really intriguing. Definitely something that stood out. Episode 223 and 224.
Well, folks, there you go. Check out episode 223 and 224 on the 12-minute convos with Engel Jones. A couple of very intriguing and interesting and coincidental conversations. You're on the Reid Method Insider podcast tonight. It's episode 32. We're in studio in Toronto, and you, enviously so, my friend, are in Trinidad and Tobago. This man is telling me he was going to wear a t-shirt just to annoy me some more. You know, when I go outside, I got to clean snow and ice off my car. Okay, that's what I got to do in the mornings. So you can go dive in the ocean, for crying out loud. But more power to you. So part of your realization and branding is that one conversation can change your life. And I know you just gave an example of one or two conversations that turned up to be so coincidental from two different people happening all over the world. Is there one of those conversations that impacted your life, or someone you know, and why?
Yeah, there's someone you know. Let's start there. So I've had many people express how, I mean, just recently, a great friend, Crystal Dixon, she told me that in preparing for her children's school the next day, she's ironing clothes and she's listening to the podcast. And she's like, I immediately wanted to start a podcast, right? Just from the inspiration of the conversation. And we've gotten that. I've gotten the value of what can occur where people appreciate you and what you produce. So we've gotten cards all the way from the coolest lands that you know, right? That come to Trinidad and to Talt, if you would, jokingly. So, but you know, we've seen appreciation so much. What we've seen as well is individuals are using the podcast as a warm up to their audience. So you get to know who Everald is a bit deeper, which always helps. It always helps in sales. When you're selling something, if I connect to who you are through a deeper conversation, it resonates a lot more. How the conversation that has impacted me, one I'd throw out there is one that is an inspiration for all of this a bit, if you would, which is that conversation I eventually had with John Lee Dumas, which was episode 1090. John Lee Dumas is a tremendously successful podcaster in the space as to what he does and how he shares what he does. I always promote him open-heartedly, right? So it's eofire.com. You could check out everything you need to podcast there. But it's how I connected with him. I'm speaking to one guy, and while on the podcast, he says, at the end of it, he says, you know what? You remind me of a guy called John Lee Dumas. Do you know of him? It's like, yeah, I've heard of him.
But
He said, you know what? I think you should have him on your podcast, because when he started podcasting, he reached out to him to have him on his podcast. And he came on. Again, he was episode 1090. But one of the things I do on my podcast is I say, can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind when you express your earliest childhood memory? I was a bit nervous, but to see it connect even in that conversation, Everald, definitely created an impact. It created a confidence, if you would, that what you're doing, and hearing his responses, what you're doing is real. Like, it's done it. Again, as Zig says, if you help enough other people get what you want, you will in turn get what you want. And
for sure,
that day was evidence of that.
Very powerful. So it's all experiences. So you never know what experience will come out of each podcast or each episode and from each guest. So that is very, very powerful. So creating a brand of yours, what does that mean to the average person listening and thinking about stepping out?
Yeah, most definitely. So yours stands, YOURS, stands for your own unique real self. I have something I've seen where individuals say your own unique self. It's funny, like yours is there, but sometimes when they repeat it, they say your own unique self instead of your own unique real self. And I think the real is so important in that acronym. So your own unique real self is what I believe is necessary to understand, to then create a brand. I believe that is what gives you the power to go through when times are challenging, when people around you are saying, why are you doing what you're doing? When you yourself are wondering, why am I doing what I'm doing? What I've done with the podcast is connect questions that can bring the insightfulness to understand that who you are, created even as a child to be, will definitely help you as you go along. It's all there. And when you build a business around what that is or who you are, instead of mimicking others because of what they have, you'll always find that there's a joy, which is one of the wealth principles, right? Joy and happiness that goes on and goes on and goes on. And that is the importance of creating a brand of your own unique real self. Now, that does extend into other acronyms, which we build as vision, mission, and values, which is your own unique real statement, your own unique real stance. But it all starts by asking these questions, these self-reflective questions that we don't like to answer sometimes, but it's so necessary to go back and reframe and understand who you are, and understand that the things that may seem as mistakes were really the foundational blocks set up for you to become all you can be.
So those are those lessons. Those mistakes are lessons for sure. Did the show take a particular trend or theme once you got attracted, or once the types of guests started to come on? Like, did it shift a certain way because of who you started to attract?
That's a great question. Yeah, most definitely. I grew a lot. Like, go back and listen to episode 1. It's painful to listen to that. Sometimes I would be, and sometimes I do, right? Just to bring reflection. I would be like, so my questions are, what is responsible for us connecting? And then I'll go straight into like cut, dry, shut, boom. How does that make you feel?
They don't even relate, those two. But
exactly. But it was so necessary to go through that. But definitely, as I grew and started to have more conversations, and I was open to feedback, and just to open to what could improve and doing the painful thing that we podcasters need to do but don't do enough, which is to listen to ourselves. Quick tip: if you're having challenge hearing your own voice, listen on 2x speed. It helps tremendously, right? But it's that it did change. Who I attracted, yes, did change the theme of the podcast. I think the podcast is really center focused on the insightful part. It's the part I do love the most. That connecting the dots from who you were to who you are.
To who you are and who you can become. Because you never know.
Beautiful.
Right? So you had an idea of this 12-minute convo series, and then you had all these listeners an idea. As of right now, January 2018, a lot of people, would have set goals and want to execute and start a plan, and just like you did, you start and stop the podcast series 2 or 3 times. What advice would you give to those people who, have this idea, a brilliant idea, and may have those stumbling blocks along the way?
Yeah. So, I'll reflect inward one more time and say, I'm very ambitious. I'm very hardworking as well.
I can see that.
Thank you. And I've seen the value in that.
Yeah.
However, I've seen the value in stopping and reflecting.
Yeah.
Then planning, which has been something that took me a while. Sometimes I regret a bit not doing that earlier on.
Yeah.
But I would suggest to those that are listening, listen to the podcast. It may seem like a plug. I guess it is. Yeah. So listen to the podcast. It's the free thing. Like there are 1,000 and more episodes there with individuals that are expressing their uniqueness. Go in there and see the power of it. If not, and you're looking for something a bit closer, check out the workbook we created. It's called Yours, Your Own Unique Real Self. It's available on Amazon. But sit with the book and answer those questions. Because in answering those questions, you'll be able to draw that line that connects. It may be blur in the beginning, but sit with it and sit with yourself. Because if it's one person that's been there right through the journey, it's yourself.
Yeah.
And as you go through that, you'll get to the point where you start creating your own unique real story. And then you'll understand how and why you should go on with more. And if that isn't working, well, we do have accountability groups that you can connect with us for and see if it's a good fit. So I'm giving 3 options, but all options surround the idea of stop. Like we're going so fast. You need to stop and reflect as to where do I intend to go with what I'm doing now. And that changes a lot of things. What we do with our goals, Everald, is that every end of year, we did it a bit late this year because we were partying all the way down to the end after.
Listen, you didn't invite me to that party. I don't want to hear about it.
I mean, we were so excited about hitting the goal this time, right? People were like, hey, you did 1,001. That's great. Yeah, but it wasn't the goal. Like, we know that, right? Like, as salesmen, hey, when we set a goal, we don't hit it, right? We don't hit it. But this time, this year,
there's no rewards for second place if you don't hit it. So,
but I hit it. And again, I hit it together with the team and everyone that came together. I hit it and I got that goal this time. So we partied all the way through. But what happened is January, we sat down and we set goals around. I mean, you could just type in Zig Ziglar Born to Win PDF and you'll find this wheel. He has 2 wheels. One is the business wheel and one is the personal wheel. The personal wheel surrounds mental, spiritual, career, physical, personal, financial, and family. And that's what we've done. We've built goals around that first. And then we build goals for business around sales, administration, leadership, operation, and marketing. So I would suggest that for those that have their goals, the thing that we've done, Everett, that's been very effective is to do one thing around each of those goals. Like one thing, not like when I just got into that, I set out like 15 goals for one thing for mental and 15 for spiritual, like one thing. And we focused on being consistent with that and built from there.
So the one thing I picked up or gathered from this past question was you've had these hurdles. You stopped a couple of times. You took a break. You thought. You analyzed. You took some advice, but you didn't give up.
Yeah.
And that's the fundamental difference. There are the two sets of people, those who do not start at all, and then those who start and give up. And I think these are some very, very valuable lessons for the audience is, yes, because it doesn't go as planned the first time doesn't mean it's not going to be great. You just need to make an adjustment, or you just need to analyze and do things a little differently.
Yeah, well said. Can I add to that as well?
Yeah.
So I've been in debt and then I got out of debt, and that has been a major part of what I do and how I do it, being out of debt. In 2013, I visited Tennessee, Nashville. Is it Nashville? Yeah, I think it's, Dave Ramsey's organization, right? For a conference called Entre Leadership. And Dave Ramsey, so I'm listening to Dave Ramsey's podcast. And a year later, I'm at Dave Ramsey's residence, right? Like, again, the Lampo Group, which is his business residence. I'm there, right? Looking at him in his face, right? The power of a conversation, right? But that being said, the last night he took us out, it was freezing cold, more freezing than any Caribbean guy should be in, right? They had these packs that you could like rub in your, like keep in your hands. And
yeah, heat packs, yeah.
All right. I didn't know about those until that night, but they were great, right? But he took us to a location as where his business was. And he said, he told us the story in quick summary as to him just about to give up, just to bring value to what you just said there. And what would have happened if someone like Dave Ramsey gave up that time? How many other people would not have been impacted, just like me? I wouldn't have been impacted by what he's done thus far, all the way in the Caribbean. So for those that are listening, just to bring emphasis on what Everett said, it's not even just about you. There's so many other people that will be impacted by what you do. And it just goes on more than you could even imagine.
Well, there you go. So life in TNT is beautiful, I'm sure. As you had the backdrop up there before we started. And your family seems very involved. So tell your audience about your unique real self. What excites you and drives you?
I'm excited by new goals. I'm excited by growing in a balanced way with my family. One of the things I think happens in the Caribbean a lot is that you have growth and the legacy model is not set up.
Yeah.
I'm excited about setting up legacy. It's not an exciting process, as you all know, because it is tedious, because there aren't many models that are doing it. Really glad I connected with Everett because he's doing it. The legacy, you're welcome. The legacy is so important. My family is definitely connected to everything I do. Amanda Jones, my wife, I like to call her Sweet Rice. She is definitely more intelligent than me, and she's the author. She's the one that makes my words look great. She's written a number of books, Poems for Patients, they focus on diabetes, the ABCs of diabetes for children.
Wow.
Children, it's time to meet your teeth. She's amazing. And then there are my two sons, Jahaziel and Amaziah. And Jahaziel is a lot like me, Amaziah a lot like his mother. So it's a mix that you cannot imagine to have all
Yes.
of us in one home, but we keep pushing and reformatting for the way we do things. Hopefully that we can grow, right? Hopefully that we can achieve these goals and that they can see a model that they can follow.
Very, very nice story indeed. So the one lesson that you've learned and one thing that you did not expect now from 1987 episodes of the 12-minute conversation, is there one thing that you learned or one thing you did not expect that has occurred?
Yeah, one thing that I've learned, I honestly thought that asking the same questions repeatedly, understanding how my mind goes and is bored quickly, right? I thought I would have been bored by now, but it really is amazing to see how unique each individual is.
That's such a good answer because you could ask, you're asking 2,000 people the same question, but you get different answers.
Exactly. So it's a mirror effect that's occurred. Well, it's not even a mirror effect, right? It's thinking it would be, but it's definitely not. And I go on like, people are like, "Are you going to change the format of your podcast?" I suppose, yeah, I could if I'm speaking to the same person again.
Someday, yeah.
But that has been the one thing that truly each person is unique, and that is beautiful.
And I think the way your podcast is set up is in 12 minutes, you can capture that magic moment and, that story. And maybe most people don't want to talk more than 12 minutes anyways. It's such a busy world, but it only takes 30 seconds to get a good story or to get the one key point that says, wow, look what I just learned today. So is there something that you believe before starting the podcast or starting down this journey that you no longer believe after 1987 episodes? Like you started, you said this was going to be the way it was going to be. Everything was going to be, going this way. And it turned out totally different.
There's a model in my mind that was created, I guess, from what I've seen on movies sometimes, where you believe that you get to that point and then that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Cinderella, shoes fit, and that was it. End of story. There's a affirmation I read every day. It says, it's something I picked up in one of John Maxwell's book. It says, I'm not what I'm supposed to be, but I'm not what I want to be. I haven't learned how to arrive. I've just learned how to keep on going. And in podcasting this last year, sometimes I was tired, right? And I got this song, right? And it sounded like, we just keep going and going and going and going and going. And my son would say, boomerang, right? Because it's the thing I learned that I'm not amping myself up to stop. I'm amping myself up to keep on going and going and going.
Amazing. I like this question. I asked this question last week to Les Brown, and I think the answer led to an outpouring of emotion from him. What is the one thing that you believe that others think is crazy?
Yeah. So I get to listen to your podcast. So yeah, I saw that question, right?
Yeah.
I believe many things that I think others may think is crazy. I believe we're all connected. One,
Yeah,
I
it's good.
believe as well that nothing is impossible. That sounds cliche, right? But
Mhm.
I do believe it. More than anything else, the one thing I believe that's crazy is I had someone on the podcast that said something that described something that I kept in my innermost part of my mind or my heart, where they said, truly, when you're born, it's just you awakening from sleep,
Mhm.
which meant that life as we know it is really something that is a continuation of something else that we don't understand or conceptualize. And I do believe that. That's the reason for really emphasizing on you reflecting on your earliest childhood memory and who you were as a child. Because it's really, really fascinating that you were so confident in who you were as a child. And then you get through the world, which is school and the newspapers and the TV ads and everything that goes with it. And then you stop believing. You start believing in what others say about you. You start believing in what and how you should look. So the thing that may seem crazy is that one thing for me that God created you with everything you needed to have. And that was done and designed before time.
Mhm.
And that is the thing I would say is crazy.
Well, and indeed, a very profound answer, that's for sure. Anything that exceeded your expectation or disappointed you along the way?
Disappointments are always rerouted in my mind to build on. So, no disappointments I would
That's
point
good.
out here. What I would say is the thing that was really fascinating is the outpouring of support for a goal.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of people ask me, how is it possible to connect with all of those people? I connected, I messaged, only me messaged every person. I use LinkedIn a lot, probably like 90% on this
I can
particular
see that.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I use LinkedIn on this year goal. Previously, I used Facebook the previous year. I had a team that was doing that. This year, I messaged everyone and I focused on podcasters this particular time. But what was intriguing is the support, my friend. Like, I'm this guy on this island that's a dot on the map. And when
Mhm.
people listen to the podcast, I mean, give them the things they need, right? So they listen to the podcast, they saw my LinkedIn, they probably saw my mutual friends, but then there was support. And I think it speaks to the value of setting a goal, because you can set a goal and you will be surprised as to who will support you and how much support you can get. All the way from one conversation to 811 conversations, which has now been in the treasure chest 1,987 conversations with people from all over the world. And I'm very thankful for all those that support it.
Well, here to that, and I can relate, and I can say the same. We've gone through a full year of the Reid Method Insider podcast. First year we had 28 episodes, and now we're at the point where there are guests scheduled weeks and months in advance. When I started with my colleague from work,
Yeah.
you know, just another sales rep from my office, and said, let's go do this podcast thing. Had no clue what I was doing, but we had enough to say. And you're right, the outpouring of support, the feedback, and now setting those goals and having Tom Hopkins on my show 3 times,
Which is great.
you now on my show. Last week, Les Brown. I can't believe it. I've never had so many video plays and likes and people watching me on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Well, obviously they're watching him, but but the point is,
You're there.
those big goals, yeah,
You're
and they're gonna keep growing, and we're attracting all these global people and global influencers from all these different disciplines, and we just want to keep pushing and encouraging people. And I see a lot of that from what you've done 1,987 times now and counting.
Yeah.
And I have to congratulate you on your tremendous accomplishment. And I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight and making this show possible, episode 32. So any final takeaways before we head out and you head back to the, well, it's not sunshine there now, but it's warm, a hell of a lot warmer than where I am. But
yeah, take off my shirts after and just, be
yes,
I get some fresh air. Takeaways, I would say, Everald, so one of the biggest takeaway from this, do they know that you're an island man, or you have island man roots in you? Do they know that?
Well, I think maybe they can figure that out with the accent, but I'm, but I don't think. But yes, I'm Jamaican and he's from Trinidad, and yeah,
Jamaica is a bigger island than ours, most definitely.
Yes, yeah. yes,
but
yes. But you guys have more money or something because you got oil.
Well, yeah.
That's the one thing I learned when I was in high school. Trinidad and Tobago has oil. We have coffee and jerk chicken.
Yeah, just amazing coffee, right? Blue Mountain coffee. Woo!
Certainly is. Certainly is.
Yeah, we should start selling coffee and oil.
There, our next business is great business idea.
All right, so my three tips, if I would yes. say, go create a brand of your own unique real self. I would say understand, secondly, that you should focus personally within and surround your family around your goals. And thirdly, then possibly make an impact. It's one life, and I think setting big, hairy, audacious goals is definitely a good way to go. But it doesn't need to have 1,987 podcasts for you. It could be to drink or have enough other people drink 1,987 cups of your coffee that you manufacture.
Yeah.
Zone into the thing that you love doing, and then set that big goal around it and let that create clarity as to what you'd like to do or not like to do. And then focus on that 20% that can create the other 80% of the life you desire.
Brilliant. How do people get a hold of you? I know 12-Minute Convos is your website.
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, you'll need to spell 12-Minute Convos, but you could type hashtag 12-Minute Convos 12MINCONVOS. Type Engel Jones as well if you want, ENGEL Jones in Google. I pop up pretty high. I have a unique name. But message me if you want at hope@12minuteconvos.com. Our model is pretty old school. Like, you'll have to connect with us, and then we'll have a conversation, and then we move from there, because we do believe in the power of a conversation.
As do I, and that's why we're certainly having this one. So yes, sure. I do appreciate you for the time tonight joining me on the episode. Co-workers today went to Jamaica for a trip, and I stayed back this time. But I certainly have to come and hook up with you in Trinidad and Tobago real soon. And next, yes, and we can go back and have some of that party that I missed. But yes. So thank you so much. And folks, you've been listening to the Reid Method Insider podcast. Engel Jones was my special guest tonight as we discussed the power of having meaningful conversations on episode 32. And until next time, stay tuned for episode 33. losing count of them now. I can't count that high. But last week, folks, tune in to episodes 31 and 32, where we had the one and only Les Brown on our show. And we are uploading that episode on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play in 2 parts. Part 1, episode 30, and part 2 on episode 31. So until next time, any last words, Angel?
No, I'm good. Like, I had fun.
All right. He had fun. I had fun. And check out Angel Jones online. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Good night. Okay. Well, thank you.
Oh, is it done?
Well, yeah, this part is done.
Can I talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can definitely talk.
Yeah.
And my eyes were closed. When you were snapping the shots.
No, they weren't.
No?
No.
I'm horrible at pictures.
They were good though, because it was like their candid shots.
Yeah.
It was good. It was just